It's Don here from the board. Thank you for coming along and checking out another one of our videos. Today I'm going to be having a look at the TS100 portable mini soldering iron. I bought this online through one of the Asian retail websites, I guess is probably a way of describing it, and it was actually shipped from Singapore. It took just over a month and I paid about 50 odd US for it. So I would say it's relatively cheap for what it is, because if you do look around, especially locally in Australia and on eBay for Australia, they do range a bit more expensive, around sort of the 90 odd dollars kind of price range. So it's meant to be a very small, very lightweight, pencil-like soldering iron, and it has a very fast heating element on it if you use the upper range of voltage. It doesn't come with a power supply, but it is used with a laptop style DC power supply between 12 volts to I think 24 volts, and that of course affects its actual heating ramp. What is interesting about this soldering iron is it's open source, and so you can actually update the firmware and you can change its heating profiles and even customize what it has on its little display. So the other thing that I wanted to mention about this particular soldering iron, the TS100, is it actually has a whole range of different tips available for it, different shapes, different sizes. But I do know somebody from the Australian MetKeys Discord who got one and it didn't work out of the box, and they have been jumping through hoops to try and prove to the retailer, which is the same retailer I bought mine from, that it is actually not working, and therefore they want to get an exchange or a refund. So I do hope that at least the unit that I got will be in a better condition. So let's have a look, shall we? So there's the packet, the customs declaration, soldering iron, and 56.27 US. So it's still sealed, as it were. So let's just crack it open and have a look at what we get in this package. Now, in a couple of videos, well, last video I did a couple of videos ago, something like that, I had shown off the head cam that I had oddly created. If you haven't seen that, of course, you're more than free to go and check that out and see what I'm talking about. I had a bit of feedback on it, and most people felt it was relatively positive. They were willing to give it a try and see how it would work. I only had one kind of absolute negative saying that they didn't like it at all. So I will give it a try, but you'll have to bear with me to see how the results of that turns out. Now, one comment was that it's okay, but there's quite a lot of wobble because it's on a visor that I'm wearing. So I guess if I can somehow get some funds together, I might try one of those GoPro head strap things, so it's more hard mounted and doesn't really move as much. So in the package, we've got a box which is slightly crushed, not too badly. It's just a bit of crush damage there, you can see. And I had actually bought a spare tip with the much smaller point on it compared to what it comes with by default. So that's a very fine tip. And this one is the TSI, so you can see how it comes down quite narrow, whereas by default it comes down with the TSB2, I believe. So that's pretty cool. And you can see I got it from Zapals. Right, so mini soldering iron, designed by eDesign, made in China, shrink wrapped. Hopefully the crush damage hasn't caused any other issues with it. Not that I really expect it to, but we'll see how it goes. It's a nice package. I wouldn't say it has the most premium of feels, but then again. Okay, so it's just a push box, I believe. There we go. It's just a push box. Oh, well, the crush made that a little bit hard to get out. We got a lift tab. So it looks like there's some paper documents in here. And of course you can see there's the actual iron and the tip below. So if we unfold it, we get Allen key and 2 screws for securing the actual tip, and then there's just a bit of card which says, "Hey guys, please register as a user for the BBS for more information." There's a semi-exploded parts diagram with some legend and keys on it, with Chinese on one side and English on the other. So if I hold that up, try and get that into focus. No, don't want to focus. There we go. For safety concerns, use parts as thermal insulation sleeve, earth clamp, appropriate power cord, might generate some smoke, and you can see the voltage table there, 12 to 24 volts, and the wattage and how fast it gets to heat up. And you can also firmware upgrade it. Now I'm not going to firmware upgrade it at the moment. I just want to plug it in and see how it goes straight off the bat. Alright, so let's see what this baby will do, what it feels like. It's very small. It's quite lightweight, holds well like a pencil. There's my old plastic ruler, and the actual length of the base is just over 95 mil. So it's just past the 95 mark there. Pretty lightweight. And then if we get the actual tip going from point to the base here, because that will sit inside the actual soldering iron, it is just on 70 for that particular tip length, just on 70. So the total assembled should be around, what's that? Yeah, it's already got a screw in it. Good thing I didn't try and force that. Should be about 16 centimeters long, 16.5 centimeters long, something like that. The only thing you have to always be careful with when you use these kind of things is not to strip screws, because they can be small and delicate. It's nice that they do come with an Allen key. I don't know what the size is, but it seems to be quite firm in how they locked it down in factory. And the tip should just slide in like that. Nice and easy. And then we'll just lock that back down. Just a bit of a light turn there. Don't need to crank it too hard, I don't think. And it's not really coming out, which is great. So, that's the full length of that. And as I'd kind of calculated before, there we go. So it's about 16.8, 16.7 in length. Very comfortable. It's a good size for working with. It's very light because obviously there's no power issues in that. Let me get my scales, and then we can actually see how much it weighs with the default tip installed in it. There's my grain scales. Wait for that to 0. And it weighs 30.8. Probably can't see it very well there, but it's 30.7 in the scales. Nope, I don't think the camera's gonna like that, but you'll have to take my word for it. It weighs 30.7 grams. Super light, super light. Which is great if you don't like handling heavy things. Now it's got 2 buttons on it, front button, back button, and they call it button A and button B, which I think you use that to actually change the temperature setting on it. Now the back of it has a voltage, DC voltage port in, although, oh no, it's fairly straight. Now I've got a couple of different power supplies that I kind of scrounged up to try with this, since I didn't buy one that was specifically for this, because they did offer that as an option, but I was just like, well, you know, if I've got something, why should I go out and buy? So let's see what I've got, and let's see what fits. Show me what you got. Okay, so I have a laptop power supply, an Asus one. It is 12 volts, 3 amp max. However, I don't know if this actual socket will fit. So let's see if it fits. Nope, it does not fit. It's too small. That was for my netbook. The only other one that I've got here is another 12 volt, but it is a up to 6 amp. Now this one, replacement AC adapter, as you can see, I got this for a hard drive dock. So we'll see if this one, I think it's got a bigger port on it, so hopefully this one will actually fit. And it does. Goes all the way, sockets in, which is fantastic. So I suppose now is the time of truth. Let's unvelcro that so the actual cable can be loosened up. Alrighty. Whoa, I was trying to drag it off the table, which is always not a good thing. Untwist tie that. Just get now it does actually have a plug adapter on it because it was a 2-pin Asian style plug with no earth, but hopefully I'm not going to cook myself with it. So let's put that on the table. And then the actual power bit can go off the table to my power points below. Alright, so it's a bit of a shambles, isn't it? Trying to get this all sorted up. And of course, don't forget the fact that I've got socket protection because of the baby. And this has got heaps of kinks in it. It's probably not the best way of looking after a cable, is it? But we'll try and sort some of that out. What are you doing? There we go. Alright. The weight of that cable is actually, it's so light that the weight of the cord is pulling it off the table. Alright. Let's see if this thing blows up in me. Hand or not. Whoa. Alright, so we've already got it's lit up, and it says to press the front button. So let's press that front button, and there it goes. It's starting to rocket up. As you can see, 80, 90, 100, 120, 40. I can definitely feel it's heating up very quickly, which is pretty cool. Almost 300 now, span of seconds, which is really good. 300, and there you go. It's holding at 300, nice and stable. Now obviously I'm not going to be silly enough to touch it, but there's definitely, you can feel the heat radiating off that. It's interesting because I'm not seeing any smoke come off it, as they describe that smoke might come off it, but that's pretty cool. Now let's see if I can ramp that down, so you can see if I want to take that down to 200, and now the temperature is slowly dropping down. Not sure what this back button does. If I want to go back up, oh, okay, so I press the front button to change it, but then the back button is what's going to bring my temperature back up. So we'll take that back up to 300, and let's rack it all the way up to its maximum, which is 400. And then let's watch that come up. So it's starting to escalate. We're hitting 290, 300, 340, 350, 60, 80, 400. It's interesting that it doesn't show an overshoot and then a cooldown, which is quite common in a lot of sort of heating devices. So I don't know how accurate that is actually. Now the actual tip is starting to discolor a little bit, which is kind of normal for soldering iron tips at least. So I don't know if it's going to come up very well on this temperature thermo that I've got, what the temperature is. It's no, the point is too small for the sensor to read accurately, but where it can read, it's reading about 104. Not quite sure if it's kind of just too fat for reading this kind of thing. Oh, one of my notebooks just fell off the desk. Alrighty, so there you go. There's the TS100. It seems to work pretty well. It's just straight up plug and play. It's heating up nice and quick, and I guess relatively accurate in that you can set temperature within 10-degree brackets. Straight out of the box, plug it in, and it works. I'm sorry, Henry from Discord, that yours didn't have the same out of the box like mine did, but I will definitely be interested in seeing how this goes. The only thing that I can foresee it being an issue is because with the actual power on it, the cable on the back end here, it's actually pulling the pen up. So I have to fight the weight of the cable to be pointing down to do the soldering. Now if I had, say, a cord bungee and the cord bungee was hanging up, then that would by far allow me to sort of be able to freely move it without it being an issue. But I guess that's just a minor inconvenience. Now you'll see it's actually turned itself off. It's still radiating a lot of heat, but it's turned itself off because it's detected that there's no actual heating activities going on here. And if I just want to turn that back on, has it turned itself off? It's turned itself off. Well, that's interesting. Well, that's pretty cool in that it's got a safety feature there, but hopefully if I unjack it and then try again, it'll come back up with its display. Or maybe not. Did it just die? That's really interesting. Pressing the button's not doing anything. So, I don't know what just happened there. Well, unless if the power supply conked out, but oh no, there we go. It's turned back on. Bit of a delay there. So, not sure what just happened there again. It's definitely cooling down. Okay, let's try that again. Let's just take the power out and let it power cycle, and then hopefully we might be able to see something going on here. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm just going to let that cool off a little bit. The power pack doesn't feel like it's getting very hot, so it's obviously not drawing a lot of power through it. I mean, at 12 volts, it's only pulling about 17 watts, supposedly. So, can't imagine it's really stressing and it's popping any breakers. Alright. And the actual handle itself is not feeling terribly warm. Let's try that again. Alright, so I have power, version 2.12. Press the front button. Okay, and now it's racking up. So obviously it must have a temperature cutout in it, in that if it's not transferring any heat out and it's not detecting any action on the tip, then it's probably to protect the tip and its internal circuitry, it just cuts out power, which is fantastic. So a little bit frustrating though, because if you have to do something in between, then you got to let it cool down before you can start up. But you saw it was only a minute or two for it to actually come down, and then it just came back up in the matter of 30 seconds, thereabouts, maybe, not even. Straight back up to 300 degrees, and I can definitely feel it radiating. So there you go. That's the TS100. Now, I'm just going to unplug that because I don't think there's an actual power off. And what I will do is, once it cools down, I'm going to test this thinner tip as well, because with my friend Henry, who got one of these as well and found that his wasn't working, it was coming up with a sensor error. And one of the suspicions is it might be a bad tip. So if it's a bad tip, then the replacement could be just a tip as opposed to the entire assembly. But we'll see if there's any issues there. Now, of course, I really shouldn't grab that while it's hot, but just thinking, what have I got that I could use to take that off with? Probably nothing. Nothing safe anyway. And yes, on video I'm contemplating being unsafe, but you know what? It's not worth it. I'm just going to wait for that to cool down. Still radiating heaps of heat. But I don't have any kind of heat-proof material here. Don't have any oven mitts on me. Suppose I got some paper, cardboard. Fold up a bit of paper. Maybe make it nice and thick. No doubt it would have cooled down quite a bit while I was contemplating that as well. So there we go. Just going to pull that out. And it's just going to sit on the paper like that. Let's try this tip. And it goes nice and easy. Try not to lose the grub screw. Of course, naturally I would potentially lose it while I'm recording. Back that out, make sure it's not going to cross thread. And then, why is it behaving like that? There we go. Alright, so it's in again. Just a light turn. Let's see if my second tip comes up. Version 212. Press the front button. And it's gone haywire. Look at that. It's really struggling. It's losing temperature. It's creeping. Okay, now it's coming up. Oh, right. So there's definitely smoke coming off of it. You can't really see it on the camera, but there was a bit of smoke that came off it. So the coatings on it must have been pretty fresh. And now it's at 300, and I can definitely feel that radiating as well. And the inside's a little bit warmer. I suspect it's probably because the thermal load when it was burning off the coating, you can see the tip is starting to discolor now. Must have drawn just a bit more power, and that's why it was fluctuating as the stuff was burning off it. So there you go. Looks like my finer tip works pretty well too. Cool. So try not to damage the tip there, and I'm just going to take that off and let that cool down as well. It would seem like both the tips that I have work, so excellent. It's a little bit unfortunate for our friend on the Australian Mickey's Discord that theirs didn't work straight out of the box, and it very well may be just a bad tip. Now they are actually in Sydney, so if they're interested and I don't know, catch up or pay for shipping, I can try and send over one of these two tips because we know that they work on mine, and they can try to see if it is a tip or if it's actually the complete unit that's no good as well. Just pretty cool, pretty cool. Now I do have a couple of kits that I still need to build, so I'm probably going to try building one of them with this iron, and then I'll try building them with the Yihua that I have, which is living in that cardboard box right there, that cardboard box, because obviously on my desk space I don't really have the space for it to live out permanently, but that's how it goes. That's how it goes. That's well, the back end of it's nice and cool. I don't know about the front of it though. Not gonna test it yet. So there you go. Thanks very much for checking out the video. I hope it kind of gives you an idea of the sensor scale and size. I know that there are other videos and there's other threads about TS100, but I thought, you know, this would just be nice and neat as well to get my look and point of view. Definitely interesting. I just think that if you're going to work with it, you're probably going to need some kind of a cable bungee, otherwise the weight of that is going to pull on the back of the pen. Otherwise, pretty sweet. I think it's definitely good value if it doesn't conk out, you know, within a couple of uses. Rightio, so we'll wrap it there. Just on 26 minutes. Bit of a long video, but hey, that's just how my reviews go, and you know how I like to talk. So thanks again for coming along. If you like this video, hit like. Please leave your comments below if you have anything that you want to say. Even if you just want to randomly shout out to the community for anyone who checks out the YouTube. And yeah, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in our next video. So until next time, as usual, happy clacking.